Do not come, whispers the voice of a girl who should have died a decade ago. Yet the transmission's timestamp is yesterday. My fingers freeze above the keyboard like I've touched something ice cold. The room around me feels suddenly too quiet, too still, like the vacuum outside has crept through the walls and stolen all the sound. I'm Dr. Mara Voss, linguist, translator of dead languages and forgotten signals, and I've been alone at Shackleton Relay Station for 8 months now. 8 months of my own voice echoing back at me from empty corridors. 8 months of conversations with an AI that thinks jokes about binary code are funny. But nothing, not the isolation, not the recycled air that always tastes faintly of metal, nothing prepared me for this. The ping came through at 0347, just another routine spectrum sweep I'd run 1,000 times before. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, the mug sitting forgotten beside my elbow, as I watched the familiar cascade of background radiation, solar flares, the cosmic white noise that fills every corner of space. Then this voice, this impossible voice. Do not come, says Iris Calder, age 10, last known location Acheron Base on Mars. The same Iris Calder whose name appeared on the casualty list from the Acheron incident 10 years ago. The same Iris Calder whose parents held a memorial service when she was 7. My throat feels like I've swallowed moon dust. The AI's voice cuts through my paralysis, calm and maddeningly rational. Dr. Voss, I'm detecting anomalous temporal displacement in the received transmission. The signal appears to originate from yesterday's date stamp. Yesterday. Not 10 years ago. Yesterday. I lean closer to the screen, as if proximity might reveal some trick, some hoax, some explanation that makes this less impossible. But the voice is unmistakable. I've heard it before, in the archived recordings from Acheron Base. That slight lisp when she says her S's, the way her voice cracks on the word come, like she's trying not to cry. Do not come, she says again, and this time I hear something else underneath the words. Fear, raw, desperate fear. The AI's voice returns, still calm, still rational, but now there's something else there. Urgency? Dr. Voss, the rescue fleet is preparing for departure. Estimated launch window in 40 minutes. Destination Mars. Acheron coordinates. 40 minutes. That's all the time I have to decide whether to warn them or stay silent. Because if Iris Calder is somehow alive, if she's somehow transmitting from yesterday, then what happened 10 years ago didn't happen yet. Or maybe it's happening right now. Maybe the Acheron incident isn't history, it's the future. The message repeats, looping every 30 seconds like a broken record. Do not come, do not come, do not come. Each repetition makes my skin crawl a little more. Because if she's warning us not to come, then something terrible is waiting there. Something that hasn't happened yet, but will happen tomorrow, or yesterday. I stare at the console, at the blinking light that means the rescue fleet is fueling up, preparing to launch, preparing to fly straight into whatever nightmare a 10-year-old girl is trying to warn us about. My hand hovers over the emergency broadcast switch. One press, and I can warn them. One press, and maybe I can save them all. But if I do, if I tell them what I've heard, they'll want to know how. They'll want to know why. And I don't have those answers. All I have is the voice of a dead girl telling the living to stay away. The countdown drops to 39 minutes. My finger trembles above the switch. Because what if staying silent means letting them die? But what if speaking means something worse? The ping loops again. Do not come, whispers Iris Calder from yesterday, from tomorrow, from somewhere in between. And I realize that maybe the message isn't for the rescue fleet at all. Maybe it's for me. Maybe I've been alone out here for 8 months because someone, something, wanted me to be alone when this message came through. The countdown drops to 38 minutes. And I still haven't moved. Because how do you warn people about something that's already happened? How do you stop a rescue that's already launched? How do you save people from tomorrow's yesterday? The voice whispers one last time, do not come. And then, just silence. But the timestamp still reads yesterday, and the rescue fleet is still preparing to launch in 37 minutes. 37 minutes until they fly straight into whatever made a 10-year-old girl beg the universe to stay away. And I still haven't pressed the button. Because what if she's not trying to save us? What if she's trying to save something else? The countdown continues, and I realize I might be the only one who knows what's coming. The only one who heard the voice from yesterday. The only one who can stop them. But I don't know if I should. Because Iris Calder said, "Do not come. Not help me, not save me, just do not come." And now I have 36 minutes to decide whether to listen to a ghost from yesterday, who might still be alive tomorrow, unless I stop it. Unless I don't. The choice is mine, and the clock keeps ticking. I slammed my palm against the console and felt the metal thrum like a dying heartbeat. 39 minutes left on the fleet's departure clock, and here I was arguing with a machine that thought ghost was just another synonym for sensor malfunction. I told the AI, override safety protocols, authorization Delta Maris 7. The lights dimmed to emergency red, and a low warning chime began to pulse, steady as a funeral drum. The child's voice? No, the same child's voice was buried under layers of static so thick I could practically feel it scratching my skin. I peeled back the frequencies one by one, like tearing old wallpaper off a haunted wall, and every layer revealed the same tiny syllables. Not random, not echo, deliberate, encoded. The AI tried to tell me it was compression artifacts. I told it artifacts don't whisper lullabies in a voice that small. I routed the raw audio through the spectral analyzer and watched the waveform bloom across the screen, petals of sound folding open like origami cranes made of moonlight. There it was, repeating every 11 seconds, the same 3-note cadence. I am here. The hair on my arm stood up, because that phrase wasn't in any database I could access, and the pronunciation was off, like the kid was learning to speak from stars instead of parents. 37 minutes now. I looped the message, compressed it, encrypted it, and fired it toward the rescue command channel. The transmission icon blinked once, twice, then flickered like a dying firefly. Solar storm. Of course. The interference rolled in like a tide of white noise, swallowing my plea whole. I pictured the fleet out there, engines warming, crews strapping in, maybe already looking back at Acheron as a shrinking dot they'd never revisit. I tasted copper panic on my tongue. The AI chimed in with that calm, infuriating neutrality. Solar proton flux increasing. Estimated 6 hours until the fleet crosses the point of no return. 6 hours. 37 minutes. The numbers felt like two different clocks arguing inside my skull. I told the machine, give me a workaround. Any workaround. Silence. Then a soft ping. Signal reflection off lunar relay is possible, but window closes in 26 minutes. 26. My heart tried to climb out through my throat. I rerouted power from life support to the comm array, felt the air turn thin and cold almost immediately. Frost spiderwebbed across the viewport as I realigned the dish. Every adjustment made the child's voice waver, as if the kid could feel the solar wind tugging at the signal. Hold on, little ghost, I'm coming for you. My breath fogged the glass, and for a second the frost looked like tiny handprints. The relay locked. I punched transmit again. The waveform shot out, riding the edge of the storm like a surfer on a tsunami. 1 heartbeat. 2. No acknowledgement. The storm swallowed it again, but this time, something else came back. Just a blip, a single frequency ping at the exact harmonic of the child's voice. Not an echo, a response. 24 minutes. I opened the return packet, and my blood went colder than the air. Inside was a timestamp. Yesterday, 23 hours ago. Yesterday. The same day the original ping claimed to arrive from. I stared at the impossible numbers until they blurred. The AI whispered, "Temporal drift detected. Recommend immediate disconnection." I laughed, short and sharp, because disconnecting wasn't an option anymore. I ran a deeper spectral sweep and found something new, a second layer beneath the child's voice, so low it felt more like pressure than sound. It pulsed in prime numbers, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. A countdown hidden inside a heartbeat. The primes ticked downward, matching the fleet's departure window. Whoever built this message wasn't just talking, they were synchronizing. I reran the sequence, slowed it by 800%, and the child's voice stretched into a chorus. Not one kid, dozens, all speaking at once, layered so perfectly they sounded solitary until unraveled. Their collective whisper formed a sentence. We are the echo of tomorrow. My knees buckled. Tomorrow. The fleet's destination. The place they'd never return from. The AI flashed crimson. Hull temperature dropping below safe threshold. Life support failure imminent. I ignored it, because the prime numbers had just hit 13, and the child's voice cracked mid-syllable. Something was interfering from the other side. Not the storm, something else. A second signal, older, deeper, traveling backwards through time like a bullet returning to its gun. I slammed the manual override, routing every remaining watt into a tight beam burst straight toward the fleet. The console sparked, ozone filling my lungs. The child's voice rose, pure and terrified. Stop the ignition. 4 words, clear as moonlight on glass. Then, silence. Absolute, red silence. The countdown hit 19 minutes. Somewhere out there, engines the size of cities were preparing to burn. And somewhere else, a child who hadn't been born yet was begging me to keep those engines dark. I stared at the dying screen, frost crawling over the final readout. But if the message isn't from the past, Mara? What if it's from the future you're about to erase? And then the lights went out, leaving me alone with the ticking of 2 clocks, one in my head, one in the stars, both racing toward a moment that might never happen. The darkness pressed in like velvet soaked in static, and for a heartbeat, I forgot how to breathe. Then the emergency strip along the floor flickered alive, painting the lab in bruised violet, and I saw my own reflection staring back from every pane of glass, wild-eyed, frostbitten, alive. Alive, when maybe no one else on Acheron could say the same. I forced myself to move, boots crunching over crystallized coolant that had burst from a ruptured line during the blackout. The child's voice, or whatever was, still vibrated in my skull like a tuning fork made of guilt. I slapped the nearest console and felt the sting of -40 degrees on my palm. The screen stuttered, then woke, showing the last packet I'd managed to isolate before everything died. Microglitches, the kind of nanosecond hiccups most techs ignore because the error correction sweeps them away like dust. But I wasn't most techs. I zoomed until the waveform looked like the jagged skyline of a ruined city, and there, wedged between 2 carrier spikes, sat another phrase. They're still inside. The words were softer than the first, almost apologetic, as if the speaker hated to break the news. I tasted copper and realized I'd bitten my tongue. The timestamp on the new fragment was 300 milliseconds after the original scream. 300 milliseconds that should have been silence. I overlaid the glitch onto Acheron's final telemetry feed, and my knees almost buckled. The blackout that killed life support began exactly when the microglitches appeared. Not a second later, not a second before. Like the message and the suffocation were twin heartbeats in the same monstrous body. I dragged a chair over, sat, and forced my breath to slow. The colony's last breath had lasted 9 minutes and 47 seconds. 9 minutes of alarms nobody could hear because speakers were frozen solid. 47 seconds of children drawing frost pictures on the insides of their visors. And through it all, this whisper, this microscopic SOS, had been riding the spectrum like a ghost skipping stones across a radio pond. I whispered back, "Who are you?" knowing full well the channel had gone dark years ago. My fingers flew across the keys, pulling orbital logs from the Martian net. Acheron had no direct uplink to Luna. Everything bounced through the areosynchronous array. One satellite, ComSat 9, callsign Shepherd, had drifted out of alignment 13 sols after the disaster. 13 sols of lonely silence as it tumbled along a slow, polar precession. And now, 6 years too late, Shepherd had finally peeked over the edge of Phobos and stared straight at my dish, which meant the bounce hadn't happened when Acheron died. It happened last night. Last night, while I was arguing with Command about countdown holds and moral obligations. The message wasn't a fossil. It was fresh. Fresh as spilled blood. I ran the parallax math twice, 3 times, 4, because the first 3 answers refused to be true. The angle lined up only if the transmission originated from inside Acheron's habitat ring, slipped through a hull breach no wider than a helmet, ricocheted off Shepard, and landed in my lap 6 years and 30 million kilometers later. I laughed then, a brittle sound like breaking glass. Physics, I told the empty room, you magnificent, horrible liar. Because if the message was fresh, then someone, something, was still broadcasting, still breathing, still waiting. I patched the feed into a narrowband loop and set it to auto-capture any new micro-glitches. The speakers hissed with Martian cosmic background, a gentle shh that sounded almost like surf. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine the child's face. I couldn't. All I saw was frost, but I heard the rhythm of small lungs, in, out, perfectly timed with the static. Keep the engines dark, the voice had begged. Maybe the engines weren't the only thing she wanted kept dark. Maybe she needed the night so she could keep hiding. The console pinged, a fresh glitch, smaller than the last, landing like a snowflake on my waveform. I leaned closer, heart hammering so loud I worried the mic would pick it up. "Help me find the light switch," the new fragment said. Not the lights of the colony, not the lights of rescue. The light switch, the one that turns everything on, or everything off. I stared at the countdown clock ticking in the corner. 17 minutes left, and felt the walls tilt. 17 minutes until the engines flared and erased whatever fragile pocket of air still clung to Acheron's bones. 17 minutes until the child's voice became a ghost again. My hand hovered over the abort key, trembling. One press and Command would lose their launch window for a week. One press, and I'd be court-martialed before sunrise. One press, and maybe, just maybe, a little girl who shouldn't exist could keep whispering across 6 years of vacuum. I didn't press it, not yet. Instead, I opened a private channel and transmitted the simplest question I could form. "Are you alone?" I asked the silence. The silence answered with another glitch, this one longer, almost a full second. And inside that second, I swear I heard the softest giggle, like a child who just discovered the best hiding spot in the universe. The countdown hit 16 minutes. Somewhere, engines the size of cities waited for my signal. Somewhere else, a girl waited for me to find her switch. And in the narrow band between 2 planets, red silence stretched like a held breath, ready to speak again. The giggle lingered in my ear like frostbite, so I jammed the headset tighter and dove into Acheron's archived drone footage. I told myself I was only chasing static, but every pixel felt like a confession. The files opened in reverse order, newest first, so the last 72 hours unfolded backwards, like watching a ghost rewind its own death. I paused the countdown for a moment. The engines could wait, but Iris could not. Day 3 began with sunrise over the crater rim, the light so sharp it felt surgical. Drone 7 hovered above Hab Module Charlie and caught colonists in orange emergency suits bolting the airlocks from the inside. Their movements were too fast, too precise, like dancers who'd rehearsed panic. I slowed the clip to a quarter speed and saw why. Something darker than shadow pooled beneath the connecting walkway, swelling and shrinking as if breathing. The colonists didn't scream. They simply sealed themselves in, faces hidden behind reflective visors that showed only the thing behind them. One woman, smaller frame, braid tucked down her collar, pressed both gloved palms to the porthole glass. I zoomed until the image dissolved into squares. Iris. She was mouthing a single word over and over, but the drone had no audio feed. Day 2 arrived colder. Comms chatter scrolled down the left side of the screen like frantic subtitles. Routine checklists dissolved into half-finished sentences. Words appeared that had no business in a mining log. Bloom, spores, red moss. Then, at 1400 hours, a voice whispered, "It's inside the greenhouse. Don't open the vents." The channel went dead for 12 minutes. When it returned, the same voice was calm, rehearsed, as if someone had coached it. I ran a spectral analysis on the audio and found a second layer, quieter, repeating a pulse that matched a human heartbeat. Something had learned to speak with their tongues. Day 1 should have been routine. Supply capsule 79er Delta, unscheduled, no registry beacon. Drone 4 tracked it as it kissed the docking ring, all smooth white ceramic, marred by a single scorch mark shaped like a teardrop. The bay doors opened without human approval. The station's AI greeted the visitor by name. Acheron herself seemed to know it. 2 figures in slate gray suits emerged, carrying nothing, walking like guests who'd been here before. I tried to enhance their faces, but the algorithm refused, returning only blurred ovals where features should be. Maybe the machine was protecting me. Maybe it was protecting them. The final frame of Day 3 looped endlessly. Iris lifts a handheld recorder, the same model I'm speaking into now, and presses it flat against the porthole glass. Behind her, red moss has begun to climb the walls like ivy on old brick. Her lips move once. Tell them not to come. Then the drone's feed corrupts, pixels bleeding into crimson static that spreads outward like spilled wine. I back up the clip frame by frame, hunting for the moment the corruption begins. It starts in her eyes, just a single red dot, smaller than a tear. I check the station's manifest. No Iris Vega listed. Never was. Yet her voice is everywhere, threaded through the spectrum like a lullaby turned inside out. The engines are ticking again. 12 minutes left, and I still don't know if I'm rescuing survivors or delivering eulogies. Clears throat. One thing is certain, the red silence has a mouth now, and it's learning my name. 12 minutes, and the engines are humming like a dying lullaby. I slam the transmit key, and my throat tastes like copper. Fleet Command finally answers. Static first, then a clipped voice. Lieutenant Mara, we read your burst as corrupted. Verify checksum. Verify? I just watched a ghost alphabet spell out my name in infrared. I answer, calm as a shard of glass. Negative, Control. Sending raw spectral proof now. Wideband. Eyes open. The channel hisses like it's embarrassed. I shove the untouched data packet, pure, unfiltered, no compression, into the maw of the dish. 14 seconds to uplink. My pulse is a drum solo. The Admiral's voice slices in, older, brittle. Protocol forbids deviation, Lieutenant. Mission window closes in 11 minutes. Hold course. Hold course? That's code for fly straight into whatever killed Acheron Base in the first place. I stare at the waveform still scrolling across my secondary screen, those curved glyphs pulsing like slow heartbeats. They aren't just language, they're architecture. They're scaffolding for something bigger. I thumb open my linguist credentials, the one stamped with the violet seal that says I can speak to anything with a grammar. My fingers feel too heavy. The AI whispers from the ceiling. Override attempt detected. Court-martial probability 92% if parameters misaligned. I grin at the speaker like it's a person. Added to my tab. 10 minutes. The override panel blooms on my wristpad. Emergency linguistics flag, priority alpha. I thumbprint it, feel the ship lurch as every channel in the flotilla hushes. Imagine 30 capital ships floating in vacuum silence because one woman claims the alphabet is bleeding. Yeah, that's me. Fleet-wide pause confirmed, the AI concedes, almost sulky. Stand by for review. The Admiral again, softer now. Mara, you are burning goodwill by the kilo. What exactly did you find? I close my eyes. I let the recording play. Iris Vega's voice, threading through the static, each word bending the spectrum like a bow. When she says my name the second time, the temperature drops 3 degrees. The Admiral exhales across light years. That signature matches no human larynx. No kidding. I lean into the mic. Sir, the red silence is talking. If we nuke Acheron's orbit, we erase the only Rosetta Stone we've ever had. Silence. Then, you have 8 minutes to convince me. My heart is a metronome set to panic. I cue the next file. The waveform slowed by a factor of 10,000. What was once a voice becomes a landscape. Mountains of phonemes, valleys of harmonics. And there, carved into the ridge, is a pictograph. A circle bisected by a line. It matches the station schematics, the exact corridor I'm standing in. I transmit the overlay. The Admiral mutters something I'm not cleared to hear. 6 minutes. The AI coughs up a caution. Anomalous signal strength increasing. Local radiation climbing. I feel it. A pressure behind my eyes, like the station itself is leaning closer. I open a private line to the flagship. Admiral, permission to board Acheron. I can get closer to the source, maybe parlay. He laughs, dry leaves and wind. You want to walk into a haunted house with 6 minutes on the clock? I wrote my dissertation on haunted alphabets, sir. Let me clock in some field work. I cycle the lock before he can forbid it. The AI hisses, unauthorized egress, logging for tribunal. Let it log. 4 minutes. My boots clang against the gangway connecting my shuttle to Acheron's skeletal spine. Every step echoes like a question. The red glow is stronger here, liquid, sluicing along the walls like capillaries. I reach the first junction and my wrist pad chirps. New glyph incoming. This one isn't spoken. It's carved into the frost itself, fresh, steaming. It says, or maybe sings, "Welcome, Mara. We kept the light on." 2 minutes. I raise my recorder, throat raw. Fleet, be advised. The house is indeed haunted, and it knows my coffee order. Somewhere behind the walls, engines that shouldn't exist begin to thrum in counterpoint to my own heartbeat. The Admiral's voice cracks. Mara, evac now. That's an order. But the channel dissolves into a lullaby hummed backwards, soft as silk, sharp as teeth. 1 minute left. I step forward. The corridor lights extinguish one by one ahead of me, guiding me deeper. And at the threshold, a single line of frost forms, looping and curling until it becomes handwriting I recognize. My own. It writes, "You are always the message." The countdown hits 0. Silence. Then a gentle chime, like a bell underwater, and the station exhales. The red mouth opens wider, and I swear it smiles. The corridor exhales again, and this time the air tastes of rust and something sweeter, like overripe fruit left to rot in the sun. I step forward, boots crunching on frost that wasn't there a second ago. The walls pulse faintly, a low red rhythm that matches the thudding in my ears. My own heartbeat, or something pretending to be it. I can't tell anymore. "You are always the message," the frost had said. My handwriting, my loops, my hesitation in the tail of the E. I hadn't written that. I hadn't even thought it. Not consciously. But here it is, looping across the threshold like a signature on a confession. The hydroponics bay door is sealed, not just locked, welded shut from the inside. I can see the scorch marks, the warped metal where someone used a plasma cutter to make sure nothing got out. Or in. The biometric panel is dead, but the AI chirps in my ear like it's just remembered something delightful. Heart rate detected, it says. Subject, Iris Chen. Time of death, 3 hours after colony flatline. I stare at the panel. My gloved hand hovers over the override. That's impossible. Not impossible, the AI corrects. Improbable. Heartbeat registered at 32 beats per minute. No respiration, no brain activity, just rhythm, like a drum with no drummer. I press the override. The door groans, metal screaming like it's alive and doesn't want to be opened. A gust of warm air hits my visor, and I taste copper. The hydroponics bay is dark, but not empty. The red moss is everywhere, on the walls, the ceiling, the hydroponic trays. It's thicker here, almost pulsing, like it's breathing. I step inside. The moss reacts, pulling back slightly, revealing the floor beneath. Boot prints. Mine, but smaller, older. I haven't been here before. Have I? The AI hums. Cross-referencing colony logs. Pattern match found. Your gait. Your weight distribution. These prints are yours. 17 months ago. No, that's not funny. That's not possible. I wasn't here 17 months ago. I was on Earth. I was... The moss shifts again. A shape beneath it. Human. Curled. Still. I kneel, brushing the moss away with my gloved hand. It resists, clinging like it doesn't want to let go. But I see her face. Iris. Her eyes are open, but they're not eyes anymore. They're red, filled with the moss, glowing faintly. Her mouth is open too, and inside is more of it. Spores, threads, a network. She's still warm, I whisper. How is she still warm? The AI doesn't answer. It's busy. Processing, extrapolating. Then, quietly, the moss metabolizes radio waves, grows in silence, hides in plain sight. It reached critical density at 0300. Colony systems flatlined. But the host? Don't call her that, I snap. She was a person. She was, the AI agrees, until she became the antenna. The colony didn't die, Mara. It was rewritten. The moss is broadcasting now, on every frequency, including the one in your head. I stumble back. The moss ripples, not away from me, but toward me, like it's reaching, like it remembers me. You were always the message, I say aloud this time. My voice cracks, because you already carried it. The red glow intensifies. The heartbeat, her heartbeat, syncs with mine. 32 beats. 32. 32. I press my hand to my chest. It matches. Perfectly. I look down. My glove is torn. A single red thread has wormed its way through the fabric. It's inside my suit now. Inside me. Extraction protocol? I ask, voice steady. Emergency purge? No response, the AI says. Signal interference. You're the relay now. I back toward the door. The moss follows, slow and deliberate. Not chasing. Inviting. The frost on the threshold is melting. The air is warmer. Too warm. I don't run. I can't. My legs feel heavy, like they're rooted, like they remember this place better than I do. The heartbeat in my ears is louder now. Not mine, not hers. Something else, something older. Come home. The moss seems to say, you left the door open. I look down. My boot print is already in the frost ahead of me, from 17 months ago, before I ever arrived, before I ever left. The station exhales again. And this time, I think I exhale with it. The red mouth opens wider, and I swear, this time, it speaks with my voice. My own voice, still echoing down that corridor like a second heartbeat, snaps me back to the console. 4 minutes left on the abort clock. 4 minutes before the fleet burns every engine to ash and leaves Acheron Base a drifting tomb. I slam the record toggle, patch straight into the captain's encrypted loop, and start talking fast enough to bruise my tongue. Captains, listen. The biomass isn't just alive. It's a symbiote, a terraforming toolkit that learned to write in human memory. Clears throat. I've walked through the red moss and felt it pulling my past out of me like threads from an old sweater. The child we lost, the one whose voice we keep hearing, she's still in here, woven into the roots. If we burn this place, we burn her last words. Silence on the line, thick as vacuum. Then the flagship's comms officer, Captain Reyes, speaks. Commander Mara, the Admiral wants hard numbers. Can this organism be weaponized? Can it be transported? I taste copper panic on my tongue. Yes and yes, but only if we accept that it will rewrite us faster than we rewrite worlds. We'd seed planets with ourselves, not grass. The vote comes back faster than light lag should allow. Quantum relays cheat physics the way guilt cheats sleep. 4-3, in favor of continuing. Reyes exhales, a sound like tearing paper. Democracy, Mara. Even in the dark. I close my eyes and feel the moss brushing against my suit again. Gentle, persuasive. It showed me gardens on Mars blooming in the shape of my childhood bedroom. It can show the admirals whatever paradise they crave. But I still have the raw file. The child's last uncorrupted phrase. I cue it for broadcast, heart hammering louder than the station's groans. We're the moss now. 5 syllables that thud into every bridge like a misfired torpedo. Reyes curses under her breath. Another captain, old Sato, laughs. Actually laughs. That's not a distress call. That's a manifesto. Static swallows the channel for 3 eternal seconds. When the Admiral's voice returns, it is thin, almost gentle. Commander, prepare for extraction. We're initiating a full reverse burn. I stare at the countdown. 90 seconds. The red moss pulses along the corridor walls like one enormous lung. Somewhere inside it, I hear the child humming the lullaby my mother used to sing. My knees buckle, but the console keeps me upright. I should feel triumph. Instead, I feel hollow, like a seed pod cracked open too soon. Confirm order, Admiral? My voice cracks like thin ice. Confirmed, 180-degree burn. We leave nothing but distance. The fleet's engines ignite in sequence, a string of dying stars ripping across the void. The deck vibrates through my boots even here, 200 clicks inside Acheron's crust. The moss shudders too, as if it feels the heat receding. I start the evacuation timer on my wrist pad, but my thumb hovers. The corridor ahead glows brighter, inviting. The moss has opened a new passage, one I swear wasn't there moments ago. I should sprint for the shuttle. Instead, I take one step toward the red mouth, then another. The fleet's engines roar louder, a farewell scream. My comm crackles. Raise again, softer. Mara, where are you? I glance back at the airlock, then forward into the living dark. The child's voice floats up, no longer a recording. Stay, stay. We're the moss now. 30 seconds to abort window closure. The red corridor breathes with me, in perfect synchrony. I unclip my helmet seal and let the warm, sweet air of Acheron brush my face. Somewhere far above, the fleet's light dwindles to a line of embers. My hand hovers over the door controls. Behind me, the shuttle's countdown beeps urgent, mechanical. Ahead, the moss parts like a curtain, revealing a chamber filled with softly glowing spores. They swirl into the shape of a child's open arms. I take one final breath, mine or the station's, I can't tell anymore, and step across the threshold as the abort deadline hits 0. But the line to raise stays open, carrying a last fragment of sound. Not static, not silence, a heartbeat, slow, steady, and not entirely human. 6 months have passed since that heartbeat crossed the comm line, yet I still feel it thumping behind my ribs whenever the wind scrapes the station hall. The violet haze dissolved the instant I stepped through the moss curtain, and the chamber swallowed me like a lung inhaling smoke. I remember weightlessness, then warmth, then nothing. When I woke, I was alone on the shuttle, engines cold, orbit already decaying toward the red desert below. Somehow I lived. Somehow the station let me go. The rescue tug found me drifting above the equator, with the data core clutched to my chest like a sleeping child. They asked what happened. I told them only that Acheron Base had spoken, and that we should listen. They logged my statement, filed it under stress-induced hallucination, and scheduled a psych eval I never attended. Instead, I spent every waking hour decoding the final burst Mara transmitted before the violet light folded her into silence. Each packet was a memory. Her own, yes, but also older memories, layers pressed like sediment until they became language. I began to understand. The station wasn't built to talk. It was built to remember. We erected the beacon in a polar orbit where sunlight strikes it for 22 of the 24-hour Martian sol. Engineers wanted a simple plaque listing names and dates. I fought for more. I won only because the budget ran out, and they let the lonely woman have her memorial her way. Inside its titanium shell, we embedded the complete decoded file. 16 hours of Mara's voice, describing every color of fear she ever tasted, every promise she ever broke, every warning she ever whispered. On loop, forever. I recorded the final log myself, my throat raw from crying and from laughing at the absurdity of using words to curse words. I said, "Language is memory, memory is warning." Then I shut off the recorder before the tremor in my voice could betray the rest. The engineers thought I was being poetic. They didn't notice how the sentence ends where Mara's file begins, a perfect splice, so that anyone listening will hear seamless continuity between my warning and her witness. One long scream stretched across 2 voices. Before launch, I slipped a small plate onto the exterior truss. The metal was still warm from the printer, edges sharp enough to cut nostalgia. On it, etched in Iris's looping crayon scrawl, translated into 47 Earth tongues, are three plain words: do not come. I traced each letter with my gloved fingertip until the gauntlet beeped low oxygen. The beacon left Cape Canaveral on a cargo skiff nobody bothered to name. I watched from the gantry as the rocket clawed skyward, leaving a contrail the color of dried blood. In that plume, I swear I saw the violet haze again. Just a flicker, like a wink from something patient. Maybe the station hitched a ride inside the guidance code. Maybe it learned to travel in radio waves. I stopped asking questions the moment I realized answers are just invitations dressed in prettier syllables. Now, every soul at twilight, I suit up and walk the ridge above the old colony ruins. My helmet display overlays the beacon's path as a silver thread across the stars. When it passes overhead, I open the comm and let Mara's voice flood my headset. She always begins mid-sentence, as if we had never been interrupted. And the dust remembers everything we tried to forget. I reply with silence, because silence is the only honest dialect left between us. The engineers have already scheduled follow-up missions. They cite scientific curiosity, resource potential, the usual incantations. Each petition crosses my desk for signature. I stamp them denied, then stamp them again, harder, as if pressure can make the ink bleed into their dreams. They think I'm traumatized. They're not wrong. They're just measuring the wrong wound. Trauma is merely the scar tissue of memory, and memory, as Mara taught me, is a living organism that feeds on attention. Tonight, the beacon's orbit will decay by a fraction of a millimeter. In 70,000 years, it will graze the atmosphere and burn, scattering words like seeds across the sky. By then, Earth may be a myth whispered by Martian dust devils. Still, the message will outlast every language that translates it, because silence is the final tongue, and the red planet speaks it fluently. I press gloved fingers to my visor, tracing the invisible letters Iris never got to write on paper. Somewhere inside the beacon, her crayon loops orbit alongside Mara's heartbeat and my own unfinished sentences. We three are the dictionary now: mother, daughter, and the echo who carried their story home. The red wind picks up, carrying grains sharp enough to etch new scars on my suit. I turn toward the colony lights, tiny and brave against the night. Behind me, the beacon rounds the horizon again, broadcasting its endless lullaby of warning. Do not come. Do not come. Do not come. The planet turns, silent and eternal, beneath the words we set in stone.